So we had decided to take a couple days to cool down, collect our thoughts, and just relax a little bit before we wanted to do a podcast. I know a lot of you fans reached out to us asking when we were going to go. We knew that if we did one that night, that it would have just been anger fueled and just like a lot of just bitching. And although that is going to be what today's podcast
It's still a lot of bitching. Yeah.
it is still going to be a lot of bitching, but it's just going to be a little bit more thought out, more constructive bitching. So welcome back to the Town Tailgate Podcast, a more cool, collected one. That's Julio.
That's the right way to put it.
Yeah, and I'm Chris Madrigal, of course.
Yeah. So we're recording this Sunday night, October 11th. So before we go into our sorrows of defeat, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is a big win that happened today. So I just want to say congratulations to Chris Madrigal for finally getting a win in our Dynasty Fantasy Football League.
It's not
long
official
time
yet.
coming.
It's not official yet.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
I still have 2 players tomorrow, and Chick also has 2 players tomorrow. So for the listeners, I'm not talking about an actual Chick. This is our friend. We call him Chick. It's a long story. Don't worry about it.
His last name is Chickarello, so we call him Chick for short.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, but the Raiders won. Derek Carr. I'm wearing my Derek Carr shirt today.
Fan-freaking-tastic, man.
So
wow, you called it earlier too. I was like,
sure. I called it. I did my research, bro.
Sure. It's like they have I think that might have been like Derek Carr's like first win against the Chiefs. I could be wrong. I know that's Patrick Mahomes' first loss against the Raiders, but
no. Derek Carr, they've won. They've always split the series with the Chiefs for the past like 6 years. Like 4 of the 6 years, even when they're bad, they've always split the series with the Chiefs. Somehow they've always been able to get one win. But he's never won in Kansas City. This was his first ever win.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Anyway, this is a baseball podcast.
Yeah. We're trying to look. The reality is we're trying to find some light in our sports lives when the thing that we really care about the most because we started a podcast is over.
So in a very disappointing American League divisional series, the A's lost to the Houston Astros in 4 games. Going down Monday the 5th, 10-5 on a brutal loss because I, to this day, still believe that if Marcus makes that play, because that was the inning that completely opened up the door for their offense in that game. If Marcus makes that play, we go to Game 5 because the series is 2-2. Tuesday the 6th, lost 5-2. The offense just could not get going. Could give no run support to Mania and the crew that day, which was brutal. Big win Wednesday, come from behind win, 9-7, and then it just an absolute ass whooping by the Astros, 11-6 on Thursday the 8th. I mean, it's just, where do we start, dude? It's the same old bullshit as it is every year. And I know the past couple years I've like bitched hardcore to you like seconds after the loss because of this, because it's so frustrating because we can never get past the divisional series in the playoffs. And it's because of the lack of experience that we have from these young teams that constantly rebuild every 4 or 5 years. But this year, I think is just like more proof that I feel like I was like in a right state of mind the past couple of years after the losses, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing we got to bring up too is like, honestly, as much as we want to hate them we do hate them. There's no words divided, but hey, shout out to the Astros, man. Those guys are still professional hitters and still going to hit the shit out of the ball, which makes them cheating even worse because of this is how good they were without it. And it's more or less, sorry to take a stab at Giants fans, it's more or less Barry Bonds taking steroids. You were already a Hall of Fame caliber player, and then you did steroids, you made yourself better and cheated. So it's the same thing. It's kind of a slap in the face that like you guys were already a elite ball club when it came to offense, like the offensive side, and they still did it. Yeah, it was It was rough. There's obviously we can put the blame game and do all that. We can say like how disrespectful that was that they had of not just for the A's but for the Astros to play nothing but day games at Dodger Stadium all week long, where the ball was in talking with Dodger fans who said like they've never seen a ball fly like that before throughout a series ever. And it shows there's multiple like numbers that show like the ball was like, and it was hot as hell last week. But at the end of the day, we're making excuses. Their pitching was not good. The pitching was something that we thought was going to be the anchor going into the season. They're not ready. And that's the truth, man. Those guys are not there yet.
The thing that we relied on the most going into the playoffs was like, okay, and we said it on this podcast, hey, as long as we can get 4 or 5 innings out of the starters, we're good. We're good. We got the bullpen. It, statistically, best bullpen in baseball. We're good. Everybody in the media was talking about it. Tim Kirkshin brought it up on Lebitard's show. Buster Olney brought it up on Baseball Tonight. So on and so forth. They all said the exact same fucking thing. That bullpen is dirty. If it gets to that bullpen and they have a lead, 9 times out of 10, they're going to win the game. And that's fucking true. But it's at the end of the day, it's still an inexperienced bullpen. It really is. The only guys who've seen playoff experience are Liam Hendricks and Joaquin Soria. I mean, it's just it's the same shit. Oh, and Yusmeiro Petit, sorry, World Series winner. It's just the same fucking shit over and over. And, I know early on, or the first couple games, it's easy to point the finger at the weather and the day games and all that. But our balls were flying out too, dude. We were hitting the shit out of the ball too. So, like, it's about when there's runners on first and third and there's no outs. How does it go 1, 2, 3 down, like down 1, 2, 3 in the batters, and then we don't score any runs out of that? That's the shit that bothers me the most. But when the Astros have a runner on second base, just one runner on second base, they find a way to get him home. They find a way to string along hits. Like, it just goes back to the experience. They've been there before. They've stepped up to the moment, and they've felt the pressure, and they've just done it. It's to me, it's really comes down to that. And we don't have guys like that.
What I don't get either is like the whole, the runners in scoring position. This was obviously something that it wasn't just a problem in the postseason last year, but it was a problem throughout the season for the team. And and like when we went through the struggles last year with the end of the season and then Tampa taking the wild card game, the big thing is Bomel made a big point of like, all right, we really need to focus on hitting runner scores and scoring position, helping guys get into position. And from year over year, it seems, at least to me, that there was no improvement. There wasn't really, it's pretty stagnant. And that's kind of one of those things, like, how do you teach that thing? And for one, like, you got to play small ball. You got to play small if you're willing to get some more, take advantage of it. Case in point, like, I was watching I think it was the Dodgers game. It was game 3 where they were having guys doing double steals and just playing small for a team that could really crack the shit out of the ball and really drop 10 runs on any given day. They're still playing that kind of ball. And that's kind of something that's a little bit wrong with our philosophy as like a franchise. Is it's historic that Billy Beane says we don't bunt, we don't do steals, it's an easy out, all this thing. But you got to do that sometimes, especially in these dire situations where I thought we would have a little bit of an advantage that with the base stealing category, because they're not, Ricky Henderson's not walking through that door.
Yeah.
But like, they were middle of the pack when it came to steals. So I thought, okay, maybe we can start seeing a little bit of that, especially when they're really struggling with getting some guys in scoring position, and they just didn't. It was so stagnant. They were just kind of relying on what made them good in the first place offensively, which is just dingers. And
but that offensive game only works like that. What we hear all the time, like, baseball's a marathon, not a sprint. Well, the playoffs are a sprint. Like, we're in the last half mile, and You can't rely on just like, yeah, I'm keeping my heart rate is still at a steady pace though. He's gonna burn out by the end of the no. You're at the end of the race and you're in third place. You need to start fucking booking it. Like that's what bothers me the most about these Billy Bean put together teams too, is they're not built that way. They're built to do exactly what they've done all season, the marathon, not the sprint. At the end, yeah, we may lose a couple games here, but we got 120 games left. It's like, no, you don't have that. You lost a game today. Well, you only have another 2 more chances to do it. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I wanted to touch on something you said earlier, but I think I kind of just touched on it. It's just so frustrating. It's just so frustrating. This is the reason why we didn't do this podcast right after, because it would have been
exactly. Like we're the thing is, look, it's Sunday. The game was on Thursday, and we've had the weekend to kind of relax. Raiders won, which is awesome. Had a pretty solid weekend. I know you've been all over the place with work and stuff, and I'm sure like you've had some time to think about it. But now that we're actually like talking about it, I'm like, fuck, this sucks.
It just pisses me off again. Yeah, I told my parents. My parents came to visit me this weekend because I moved. For those of you who are watching the YouTube feed, this is a different background because I live somewhere else. And my parents were kind of like, so did you and Julio record a podcast? And I was like, no, I just didn't want to talk to anybody that day. Like as soon as the game was over, like Jesse, like all my friends texted me. I ignored half of them. Like my roommate Jesse texted me, former roommate Jesse texted me. He's just like trying to talk about it. I'm like, dude, honestly, I don't want to talk about it because I'm just pissed off, and I'm just gonna it's just gonna be a venting session. I'm warning you right now. When you get home, like I'm gonna be in a bad mood. And he's like, got it. Okay, cool. Thanks for warning me. And it was one of those kind of days. And I just want to touch on the starting pitching was actually, I felt like, other than Game 5, obviously, because he kind of got rocked.
Game 4.
No, I mean, well, who was Game 4 again? That was
Montas.
Yeah, I guess Montas kind of got rocked.
We didn't make Game 5, unfortunately.
Yeah. Game 4. Yeah, sorry. The starting pitching was pretty good. Like I was impressed by Manaea. Obviously, he was giving up runs, but he was getting no run support. They only scored 2 runs in that inning or in that game. Like it was brutal. And then Bassett pitched to what I thought was a gem. Up until that error. And then obviously Jesus Luzardo did really well. He got into some trouble, but they were able to work it out. But I do see a lot of promise there. But one thing that my parents also brought up is, like, at the end of the day, you can't go into a series with a Jesus Luzardo, a Chris Bassett, and a Sean Manaea. You need a guy, just a killer at the top, like a Trevor Bauer, who we didn't go after, or a Mike Clevenger, who we could have used. You need that killer who for a fact is going to give you 6 shutout innings, and you can actually make a game out of it. You can't have all these young, like, questionable arms where you don't know where they're going to go with it. It's another thing that goes back to, like, our frustrations at the trade deadline. And I think it proved that our frustrations were right, Julio.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, we're pretty high on Luzardo. I think he's going to I think his problem is he's just having some location issues, which is like he's a kid still. He's 22, 23 years old.
Yeah, but that's the problem.
That's bound to happen.
We constantly rely on kids to start our series, our playoff series.
Now, there is we're not going to talk about free agency or trade stuff because we're going to wait until we get closer to that season. But there are some ideas of,
we are going to talk about looming guys. We are going to talk about looming free agents. Though.
Yeah. Obviously we can't afford Bauer unless he's been tweeting about all these teams of like, oh, I heard Baltimore is pretty nice during this time of the year. Oh, it looks like the Yankees need the arm. He hasn't tweeted about the A's because let's be real, it's not going to happen, unfortunately. But I think if you can, Dave Stewart brought it up. He's like, I think a big problem with the rotation, and I think there's a couple other positions where we can really pinpoint that too, is like they need a veteran. They need somebody who's been through the ringer in those situations, who's been in big playoff games, who's been through the ringer as a vet, as much as we want to, Mike Fiers is a veteran and Chris Bassett's a veteran, but it's like they've never really had to play high stakes games like they had this playoff run. if you think about, okay, what was our think about 2013, the 2012, 2013 teams. Yeah, Sonny Gray was a kid, and Brett Anderson,
Jared
and
Parker
Tommy
and
Malone, Jared Parker. But hey, who was there to kind of walk them through? Bartolo Colon. Think about 2006 when it was Danny Herron and Joe Blanton. Who was there to kind of really steer the path because he'd been through some stuff?
Yeah, Barry Zito. That's a good point.
Yeah. No, or Barry Zito, but also we really shouldn't be talking about him anymore because of personal stuff. Yeah, well, no, Zito was the vet there, but we really shouldn't be talking about him anymore because of what's happened in his personal life. But Esteban Loaiza, the guy he was a veteran coming up for the White Sox. They got him on a 1-2 year deal, and he taught them some stuff. That's something that Dave's right, man. When you have those guys who've been through some shit and been through the ringer, and when it matters, that is important. And that's something where I think the Astros had their upper hand with it, where Greinke didn't have a good game at all. Game 4, I thought from the get-go, I was like, oh, he's going to get knocked out early. But like, because of everything, the guy's a Cy Young winner. He's been to the World Series. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He can walk through these guys and stuff like that. And another big thing too is when you have a veteran backstop in Martin Maldonado who's calling those games, that's a huge benefit. Sean Murphy's going to be a franchise catcher for us. He's going to be awesome. He's going to be great. But I think this is something that I was a little concerned about going into the season too, was like, I wish we had somebody who could have given him some guidance and helped him steer that way. Something like, that's why I was really hoping they would have got Stephen Vogt in those situations.
Here's my argument to that is every single rotation that you just named with like the veteran who's been there or whatever, or what's Dave Stewart said, none of them won a playoff series. So that's all good and dandy having one veteran in the rotation, but it clearly doesn't work. It clearly
okay.
doesn't.
So what about Charlie Morton? Just advanced the race. What about Clayton Kershaw? I just said Zach Greinke. They advanced.
Those guys. Okay, so you just named the Tampa Bay Rays, who have the most talented rotation, hands down, way more talented than any of the rotations that we just named, or our rotation in general. I mean, Snell and Glasnow are on a different level compared to where, at least right now, Luzardo and Bassett and those guys are. So, like, I don't think that's a fair argument at all whatsoever. And our one playoff series that we have in the past 20 years against the cursed Twins. So like that really doesn't say much for me either. You know, like it's just, I get what you're saying and I respect it, but at the same time, like it's the results aren't there, you know?
Another crazy thing too. 3 of the 4 teams that are left, 3 of those GMs or front office people came from the Rays front office.
That's actually pretty fucking wild.
Yeah. So like Andrew Friedman with the Dodgers and the Rays GM. And then I want to say the Astros GM came from Tampa in one form or another. So they're doing something right over there. And it's funny that people I've had friends on the East Coast, or shout out to the 4Train podcast, 4Train Savages, who also, sorry for your loss too. But they're like, oh, you guys are like the Tampa of the West. I'm like, no, Tampa's really smart with it. It seems like they're way ahead of it. And it's kind of what the A's were 15 years ago and a little bit before that.
They're just a put together baseball team, and they play really good baseball, and they do it all. They can pop the shit out of the ball, and they can also string together runs and play small ball and get runs when they need to and be scrappy. And they have great pitching, and they have a great bullpen, and they play good defense. Like it's crazy. Like they are just a well put together club.
So I think it's time, kind of just talking about front office stuff. We should probably talk about the elephant in the room, but I think we both know what both of our answers are going to be. Bomel, do you think he goes?
No, I think that'd be so stupid. Can I rant for a second? And I'm going to set it all straight for all the fucking Bomel haters out there. This guy is doing the best with what he's got. He does not, as much as you guys want to blame him for maybe certain moves that he actually admits to making bad mistakes sometimes and fixes them. Like, for example, the game 1 thing that the game one issue of the wild card series that we brought up, where he tried to pitch around Jose Abreu, and then game two they decided not to, and they were way more successful. He's doing the best with what he's got. When Billy Beane is doing the best of what he's got. When the ownership doesn't want to spend money, and Billy Beane constantly has to re-put together a new team every 4 years, and somehow, some way, Bob Melvin's able to get the most out of the talent that he has, and really, like very fast develop them into these really good players. Like that guy, I don't know how he does it. He gets these young guys, and the projections are always like, oh yeah, in 5 years he's going to be a great player, and then 2 years later he's the star of our team, like Matt Chapman. I don't know how he does it. It's insane. So if anyone out there is calling for Bob Melvin's head, then just do me a favor and do some more research, and then come talk to me, and then I'll argue with you, and I'll relay the facts, and then I'll win that argument. But it's all good.
I think he should go.
You think he should go?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Okay, so I think just how like stressful these last 2 weeks were with this team, it was a lot of different emotions, and someone was like, "You should go," and then someone's like, "You shouldn't go." But in reality, is look, you're right. He's doing the best with what he's got, and if we didn't have somebody like him steering the ship, we would. No offense to Mariners fans if we have any listeners, but we would be like the Mariners.
Yeah.
And another thing too is like, all right, hypothetically, let's say if we find out Bomel gets fired, who's going to take this job? You're going to have a really hard time convincing unless you're willing to find some young potential up and coming manager that's willing to be a yes man to Billy Beane, which is hard. You're going to have a hard time finding somebody who. It would be
Darren Bush or Mark Kotze. No one outside the organization would want this job. Only someone inside.
Because the reality is, okay, let's lay this out. You have a owner who is not willing to invest high into the team. So you're going to have to work with what you have, and you have to be prepared for a future without it. You have, again, love the Coliseum, my home away from home, but you have a pretty crappy stadium where if you were to say, get a stadium that's a little more modern, that let's say if like the Detroit Tigers, excuse me, they have a little more better luxuries where they can provide to you, and you would do that. It's hard. Like, why would you? And it's like, cool, we have some really awesome young talent with Chapman and Olsen and Laureano and Luzardo. But like, in the back of your head, it's like, I got a year or two with these guys before I know they're going to be gone. So like, why would you even, if you're somebody like I know some potential names that I've thought about, because this year is actually being like a pretty solid year when it comes to managerial opening or potential managers, because of AJ Hinch losing his job with the Astros, and then Joey Cora losing his job with the Red Sox. There's a lot of, I think, a big trend you're going to start. Alex Cora, I'm sorry. No. A big trend you're going to start seeing, because it's already started happening, is like, hey, you were good on TV as a baseball person. We should have you as a manager. Case in point, Aaron Boone, or think about even with
basketball with Steve Nash.
Or even Steve Kerr. Like, look at that. Look how successful a coach he's been. You're going to start seeing that with baseball now. But the odds are, like, we're not going to be able to get anybody better than Bomel right now. And I understand your frustration, because I'm in the same boat, man. It's like there's some. As soon as I saw Montas just being any tiny, like, he started losing it in game 4. I'm like, pull him. When Delkin was already warming up, but by the time he pulled him, like Montas already gave up like 3-4 runs. So it's mistakes that where it's frustrating to still go through with somebody like him, because of being a part of a playoff series in 12 and 13. And it's so hard to kind of really put any like value into a 1-game wildcard playoff, because that's just kind of an anything goes thing. So at the end of the day, man, we can be as frustrated as we want. We're not going to find anybody as good as he is with us.
I feel like you're talking about it like we're settling with him, which I don't think that we're settling. I feel like we're very lucky to have a manager as good as him. And he also bails us out of situations with moves like for example, starting Chad Pinder this entire series. Chad Pinder came up huge in almost all of his at bats offensively, and he could have easily just went away with him um, against righties, but he kept him in there, and he was still good. Things like that, and he's done it in the past. So I don't. I just feel like the tone of settling is not okay. I feel like we should be really thankful because if he was with the fucking Yankees or Red Sox, like he would have won a World Series already. Like,
Oh no, 1000%. If
part
you
of it, like
tell,
he
even on the
wants,
Giants,
yeah, he wants to live.
give
He
him a
wants to
budget,
live
man.
at home, and he wants to manage for the team that he grew up watching. Like I get it. Like I get why he does it, and he has a lot of free reign. I know we talk about like you kind of brought up like Billy Bean's puppet. I've actually kind of heard the opposite, at least with Bob Melvin, that he actually gives him a lot of freedom, but he has to do it based off the team that Billy Bean wants to design, obviously. But yeah, I don't know.
If there's any coaching change I could see maybe happening to spruce things up, probably Darren Bush.
Yeah.
The offense took it, but the thing is too, and I think that's something we got to be aware of as a whole picture. The season was such a sample size, man. Like we can complain about the offense was not where it was last year or 2 years ago, but at the same time, Matt Olson's a career 270s, high 200s hitter. He's not going to bat below 200 again. And that's just the reality of it. It's such a small size. But if you're having a guy who is your hitting coach who you've kind of put in charge, like, hey, we need to do a better job of hitting runners in score position. We need to find new ways of doing it. And he's not doing it, then there's got to be some questions about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be some reason like what's going on. And at the same time, if this is the guy that you're willing to put the blame on, but it's also, again, so small, you have those options of other guys who would look for a redemption tour kind of thing with somebody like Cora or Hinch. So who knows? I don't think we're going to see anything happen. I think it's going to be stay afloat in terms of front office, but we'll see, man.
Who's the next guy you wanted to go over?
In terms of,
I thought you were going to talk about like who goes, who stays. You kind of seem like
no. In terms of, I think if you look at like top to bottom, like honestly, like the coaching staff did a pretty fantastic job. Emo, I know, like Scott Emerson, the rotation wasn't there, but at points of the season, but there's still like a lot of bright points where I think you should definitely give them a little more wiggle room with that. And also, we got to talk about this real quick because a lot of people were freaking out about it on Twitter on Thursday. If you didn't hear about this or if you noticed it, when normally when Bowmel will go to the mound for a pitching change or go talk to a pitcher. He didn't all day Thursday. And people are like, what the hell's going on?
That's right. Yeah.
So everyone's like, is there like this weird conflict going on? Is there something, extracurriculars for lack of better words? It turns out he had like a pretty bad like foot injury, I guess. And just, he didn't really want to put too much room on his movement on his foot. So Emo was the one that was going out there and doing it for them. So
I know Jeff Francoeur brought that up. He's like, this is really weird. I didn't expect him to come out. I wonder what's going on. And they were talking about it for a couple innings. Like, I wonder what it is. So that makes sense. Okay.
So there's that. But yeah, I think unless they're willing to make a move on Darren Bush, I think everything else is going to stay the flow, at least when it comes to managerial.
Yeah, I mean, and also we have to remember that Bob Melvin just signed a 5-year or 4-year extension last offseason, so that would just be a waste of money. I don't see Billy Bean or cheap ass John Fisher doing that.
Okay. Before I forget, there is another thing we need to talk about when it comes to the front office. Now, we talked about this maybe like the first or second episode, but we talked about how Billy Bean is becoming a part of an acquisition firm called Red Ball Acquisition Corp.
He's a founder of it.
Yes, he is the founder, where pretty much it's like a
it's an organization built on purchasing sports franchises. Sports franchises. That's literally what it is. It's an ownership. It's a company, a group, it's basically a venture capitalist firm built by investing and purchasing sports franchises, whether it be leagues, whether it be teams, whether it be any of that stuff. They recently just bought the XFL and are re-putting that together. The Rock is a member of that firm. So that's what it is, leading up to what you were going to say. Go ahead.
That being said, he is in talks to become a 25% 25% holder of the Fenway Sports Group, which is valued about $8 billion or so. They hold the access to Liverpool Football Club, and as well as the English Premier League, but also the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility that at beginning of next year, as a franchise, Billy Beane's no longer going to be a part of the Oakland organization.
Well, he owns part of the Oakland A's currently, as is.
Yes, but the whole thing is like you can't own two different franchises in the same sport.
So he would have to sell. But here's the thing: is it his firm? Is it that organization that's buying it, or is it him? Because that's two completely different things. Fenway Group is also a part owner of Fenway Group is Clutch Sports. So and I think they also own a basketball team, an NBA team. So but yet LeBron is a member of the Lakers. So how much, there's just a lot of legal jargon that I don't understand that I can't really weigh in on.
Yeah. So according, there's a website on Bloomberg if you want to check it out. But according to Jason Dana, he's an associate professional of management and marketing at Yale School of Management. So he knows his stuff when it comes to this. It seems like a clear conflict. A person couldn't, for example, own two different Major League Baseball teams. For the same reason, this seems to open the possibility of coordination between two teams, which is bad for the game. If anything, hopefully this could be a negotiation tactic. Be like, hey, I'm going to buy this part of the Red Sox. I would love to buy this part of the A's from John Fisher.
Yeah, the first thing that just came to mind while you were saying that is I kind of hope it does happen, because then it kind of pushes John Fisher into a corner where it's like he's not going to have the scapegoat of Billy Beane constantly putting a competitive field on the team. If Billy Beane does leave, constantly putting a competitive team on the field for him and rationalizing him being able to be a cheapskate. So, that's the way I see it. Now you're going to have to, the spotlight's going to be on him, and he's going to be, shit on by all of his billionaire friends. Like, oh, your team sucks because you don't put any money, you cheapskate. And then the team will, and then we won't be as successful. So maybe it's a good thing for the A's, because maybe it'll force him to sell the team.
It could be, yeah. When you said force him to sell the team, a light bulb. You'll see this when we're on YouTube, but light bulb went from my head oh shit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, get our Joe Lacob pipe dream, man.
Yeah. Hey, Joe Lacob is very close friends with Billy Beane. I'm just saying.
Yeah, this is something obviously this isn't something that's gonna happen tomorrow. You're not gonna wake up and see this happening. It's gonna be taking over the course of a few months, because that's just how baseball ownership and change of hand go. So not to say we reported it first, but we didn't. But it's something you should definitely keep an eye on if you're not already.
So, and that bridges to something, I mean, we don't have to touch on it too much. I think we made it pretty clear on our social medias, if you guys follow us, about our feelings towards ownership. I just want to bring up a few interesting facts about John Fisher. So, John Fisher is the owner of the A's. I think it's for the past 6 years, the A's have been number one in revenue in Major League Baseball, because they don't spend much money, so they make a lot of money.
You don't say.
The last big contract I can think of, other than Chris Davis that the A's made, was Billy Butler, which wasn't that big. It was $30 million for 3 years.
And it was terrible.
And it was terrible. And then before that, it was Eric Chavez. It was like 6 years for 65 mil or something like that. I can't remember.
And it was okay.
It was okay. It was good for like 3 years and then injuries. He did not own the team then, though, so you can't really blame him for that. He is a trust fund baby. He has never earned a single dollar himself of his $2.5 billion that he's worth. He is the son of the founders of Gap. That's right, Gap, the clothing company. Gap, yeah, that lame company that people in movies always make fun of. Gap. I just want to keep saying that because that's how that's how he made his money. His parents founded that clothing company. So the fact that he is just that much of a piece of shit to never spend a dollar, not willing to pay his employees during COVID. I mean, the list goes on. And it all comes down to him. You look at any successful franchise in sports, there's always an owner backing that franchise who is in support of what the team needs to do and was willing to spend money that makes them successful. Look at all the laughing stocks of sports franchises. The Knicks, James Dolan. He's just a joke. We don't have to get into it too deep. The Jets. Another situation. The owner is just ridiculous. The Mets for a long time, yet for some reason they still managed to figure out how to be successful. I mean, we're going to be that in a couple of years, Julio, if ownership doesn't change. And it's just sad. It's just sad. Either open your checkbook, John Fisher, or sell the fucking team. Seriously.
Now, here's the thing. We're not asking... I think it's a franchise or it's a fan base. I don't think any of us are asking like John Fisher, like you need to have $100 annual payroll because look, that we get it. Yeah, we get that. Right now, the A's are ranked 25th, have a $36.7 million payroll, just above the Kansas City Royals, but just below, kind of surprising, the Cleveland Indians. The league average is $59.4 million. The three teams ahead of them at 16, we have the Arizona Diamondbacks, 15, Colorado Rockies, 14, the Atlanta Braves. I guarantee if you were to give the A's the Diamondbacks payroll, which is about a little more than $59 million, you could have, with the way that David Forrest and Billy Beane and Bob Melvin manage this team, you'll have a World Series contender year in and year out. And what does that mean? That means more money. It means more money for people going to games, more people wanting to buy A's merchandise, and more people watching your games. Oh, by the way, the A's had the biggest jump in viewership this past year. Put that investment in, man.
Look at what Joe Lacob did with the Warriors. When he bought the Warriors, they were worth $300 million. Now they're worth $3 billion because he put money in the team and decided to spend money.
He doesn't get it. It's just and it's funny because it's very much like do you know like the monkey paw effect?
No.
Do you know
Please explain for the listeners who don't either way.
Okay. So I know it's from something else, but I know it from The Simpsons. But there's an episode of The Simpsons, a Halloween episode, where they get a cursed monkey paw. And the whole premise of it is you wish for something on the monkey paw, and that thing goes away, but it kind of has a repercussion to it.
Okay.
So the one ongoing joke, there's one where like the monkey paw is getting out of control, and Homer's like, he wanted a turkey sandwich. He's like, I don't want to eat the turkey and eat it and turn it into the turkey myself. I don't want all this. I just want a regular turkey sandwich, blah, blah, blah. And he bites it and he's like, all right, it's pretty good. Yada, yada. Mm-hmm. The turkey's a little dry. He's like, the turkey's a little dry. He said, damn you. So our monkey paw was like, all right, let's get rid of Lou Wolf. He's gone. Well, guess what? John Fisher is worse.
Not much better, yeah.
The great thing is, if you go on A's Twitter, it's across all the different pages that we follow and that follow us.
Yeah, I'm just glad that the fans are aware of it now.
Yeah, people hate it, man.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And also, like, Dave Cavell, we got to give him a shout out because he's done a fantastic job since he's been here. He's been a very great face and voice for the team. He's been excellent, and it just kind of sucks because for a lot of the times he's the fall guy on this, and I'm sure really
he's another guy who he's just doing the best of what he's got, like what he's given. Like he's just and you know what, marketing wise, I mean the guy is a fucking genius. He has turned the A's from like what was the little brother around the Bay to like now very competitive little brother. You know what I mean? Like he's almost the same size as the brothers who've been picking on him for years.
There was somebody on our Twitter page, I think it was Brian, who sits over in the right field. He's the one who has all the pins. He's got the GIF.
Yeah.
Kingpin. Yeah, the Kingpin. Yeah. I think it was him or somebody else who was like,
shout out Kingpin, by the way, if you're listening.
I was like, I have no idea what John Fisher looks like. We just went to the Twitter exchange. Like, I'm like, John Fisher could look like Jabba the Hutt for all we know, because this guy has been
that's good actually
behind the team for 14 years, and we have no idea. And you see him, you're like, yeah, it's just a generic boomer. See, that's where our problems really come from.
That's just really what it is. And another session of the Town Tailgate shitting on boomers. So this is a good segue that leads into our final topic of this episode, which is looming free agency. Okay. So of all those players that I named earlier, of like the extensions we gave, why don't we do a list of players who were great talents who we just let walk? What do you say, Julio? Or traded?
Let's do it. It's not fun, but let's do it.
Josh Donaldson's the first one that comes to mind. Played only for 3 years for the A's. Your turn.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. We're going through past players.
Yeah. I just want to paint a picture before I really just dive into it. Sonny Gray.
One of my worst days of my baseball life was when they traded my favorite player, Yoenis Cespedes. So like I died that morning. I remember being 15 years old. I was at Disneyland. We were walking through downtown Disney, and we walked up to ESPN Zone. You know how like ESPN Zone used to have the ticker and it gives you updates? I just remember seeing Tim Hudson traded to the Atlanta Braves. Like,
yep.
Why? Hey, what about the ones that we thought were nothing, like Carlos Gonzalez, Houston Street. Somebody we're going to talk about a little bit later, and Max Muncy.
Yeah, Max Muncy. Another couple that like really come to mind are, I mean, obviously Miguel Tejada, but that was kind of writing was on the wall for that one. Jason Johnson.
Hey, remember when we drafted Aaron Judge,
Nick Swisher. I mean, we can go on and on and on.
Tyler Mack's favorite player.
So that's right. So we have probably, I would say, a once in a generation, maybe once in 20-year player going into free agency this offseason. And the reason why I want to emphasize him more than all the other names that we just named was because of a few things. One, he was the building block, literally the first block of this pyramid. This team was built around his skills and him being the future leader and one of the stars of this team. In 2014, when they traded Jeff Samardzija for Marcus Semien, Chris Bassett, and Josh Phegley. Those were the guys that they're going to go from there. And then all those other trades, they traded Josh Johnson, all those other guys. He's been here for 5 seasons. It's longer than most A's players have been there because just, again, like we kind of just said, we don't keep guys around too long. So 5 years is actually quite a bit. He's the captain of the team. He is finally coming to his own as a veteran leader on this team in terms of on the field and in big moments. He had an amazing playoff series. I don't have his stats up right now, but I think he hit around 350 for the playoffs, had 2 home runs, like I think it was 8 RBIs, something like that, had just an amazing series. Other than the one error, obviously, had an amazing series. He's finally a developed playoff player. He's stepped up in these big moments, and he's about to fucking walk in free agency to probably the fucking Red Sox or the fucking Yankees, these teams that will pay him $80 to $100 million, the money that we won't. So that's the situation that we're in right now.
I thought you were going to say TJ McFarland.
That was a good joke. Touche.
Yeah, you know who's going to go after Marcus though, right? It's not the Yankees don't need a shortstop.
Yeah, they don't need a shortstop. That was just off the top of my head.
The Red Sox don't need a shortstop. They got Bogarts. You know who's got a shortstop that's leaving for free agency and is willing to spend money? They live 40 minutes south of us with the Anaheim Angels.
Oh, fuck.
That's good. I legit think because like Andrelton Simmons is going to be a free agent. And I think it was an Alex Kofi article on The Athletic, or somebody on The Athletic. They were like, I think somebody who could be a potential replacement for Simmons if he leaves is Simmons on a 1-year deal kind of thing, like a prove it kind of thing. But that's a team, if they're not going to want to re-sign Simmons, is that we should look out for.
That would be my worst fucking nightmare. That would just that would just suck. I would hate that so much.
Before we kind of get into this pit of sorrow that is our fandom of Oakland A's fans, on Friday, Dave Forrest, Bomel, and Billy Beane had a press conference for the media, just kind of like a more or less year-end review, and they just talk about what's going forward. And they're pretty adamant that they're going to bring back Marcus one way or another, whether it's a full-on 5-6 year extension, whether it's going to be a 1-2 year deal. It sounds like that's like their top priority of this offseason is to bring back him and to bring back La Stella.
Yeah. So to make it like, to clarify a little more, sorry, Julio, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, yeah, you're fine.
A little more. Billy Beane more or less said that he's going to actively negotiate and not just kind of like send an offer and be like, okay, cool, we made an offer. He's going to actively negotiate and work with his agent to try and find something where they can bring him back. That's not what he said, but that's, if you kind of make out what he's trying to say, like that they're going to actively negotiate with him and aggressively negotiate with him in good faith in order to try and bring him back. It's not like the stuff that we've heard in the past where it's like, yeah, they made him an offer, just wasn't good enough, but they stuck to their guns. No. Yeah. That was at least for Marcus. For La Stella, he just said that they're going to try and bring him. They're going to try and bring him back as well. But with Marcus, they really want to make it work.
La Stella's contract actually isn't that bad. Where like I think the likelihood of if they want to make a move on him, they can use. I think he's within the budget of what they usually pay to bring back. The interesting thing about this whole like, hey, we're gonna make moves or anything, there was no word about Liam Hendricks. So yeah. Sorry guys, we hate to say it, be prepared, Liam's gone. And it makes sense. Historically, they've never really paid closers. We've seen a lot of guys this year who've really stepped it up and who could become our future closers, whether it's JP Wendelken, Jake Diekman, somebody might kill me for this, but Lou Trevino. We have options.
Or
we have
AJ
guys,
Puck. Or AJ Puck.
Or AJ Puck, you're right. We have some options who could potentially take that role, but we'll see. We'll see, kind of thing.
So here's a list of guys who are up and coming free agents.
Before you go ahead, $3.25 million is his contract right now. So
that's La Stella's.
La Stella's, yeah. I don't see why you can't give him a 2-year, $10 million deal.
Yeah, he might go a little bit more. He might be around like six or 7 mil. I feel like
somebody asked
for a player like his caliber, the way he hits and the way he plays defense. I would, yes. And also, it solves our second baseman problem that me and you have been talking about. We've been talking about on this podcast. We've been talking about for years. For the past 2 years, we just can't. Ever since Jed Lowry left, Like we can't figure out second base. We just can't.
I could also see them just saying, you know what, we're gonna kick the tires on this whole thing. Let's bring out Jed Lowry's dead body one more time since he's gonna be a free agent.
I could totally see that doing. Okay, so here's a list of free agents: Jake Lamb, Thomas Dell, like we just said, Marcus Semien, Robbie Grossman. Talked about him a lot too. Let's see, Mike Minor, Mike Fiers, Joaquim Soria, Yusmeiro Petit, Liam Hendricks, TJ McFarland, and that's it. So those are the free agents coming. In 2022, there's a few as well that are worth noting.
Did you say Fires? I'm sorry.
I did say Mike Fiers.
Okay. Sorry.
2022 is Mark Canna. 2023 is Chad Binder. Sorry. So yeah, 2022 Mark Canna. Oh no, Stevens Piscotty is signed until 2024. I was way off on that. Whoops. Yeah, just Mark Canna. Sorry, I thought that was a little bit more interesting, but it's not. Oh, and Chris Davis.
So well,
yeah, go ahead.
We're not going to get too far into the free agent stuff because we have a whole offseason talk about it and what we think they should do, what we think may happen. But I don't think anybody from that bullpen's coming back, to be honest. Maybe if you can get Soria on the cheap.
You can't get Soria on the cheap, though.
Yeah, but Hendricks is going to be expensive.
Petit's probably going to retire.
Who knows? Like, the dude is still a huge workhorse. And, well, no, but the thing is, too, we have arms loaded to get ready to put in the bullpen with. We talked about James Kripalian a lot. We said, like, hey, this might be the future for AJ Puck, even though they said at that last day press conference that, like, their full expectation is AJ Puck's still going to be a starter going into the future.
Maybe Grant Holmes finally.
Grant Holmes might be going back there. The thing is, like, they can find bullpen. It's kind of petty to say about somebody like Hendricks, where it's like the dude is DFA'd. Nobody wanted him. And he turned into an all-star closer these last couple of years. JP Wendelken we're like, who the hell is this guy when we picked him up last year? And he was arguably our best reliever. I'm not too worried about that.
But also our favorite former Giant will hopefully be healthy next year. Birch.
Hey, bad Birches only, baby.
And we got
bad Birch alert.
And we got Birch until 2023. So
hey,
we got some help coming back as well. The big
Birch,
names
please,
that you know now that are towards the end of the bullpen are not going to be there except for Diekman. So they're going to have to find those guys, and they always kind of do. They also sign random signings of guys that are kind of like at the end of their career, but had like a really good year last year. Guys like Trinan, guys like Soria. So they'll probably get some guys like that too. But I would say A's Nation, be fully prepared to have Jake Diekman be our closer next year, not Liam Hendricks.
And I think he deserves it. I think he at least deserves a shot.
He had an amazing season, absolutely.
So we're going to go into our next segment, if you're ready for this. We're not going to get too far into the free agent talk. We have all winter or whatever the hell this California winter is, knowing it's going to be like in the 90s again this week.
Yeah, probably.
But let's do a quick recap, our essential tools for this past week. This is our last one this season, so let's really make it worth it. I picked Chris Davis. Chris Davis, first off, huge shout out, man.
Oh my God.
We've been giving him so much crap this whole season. We're so worried about him.
This is why he got his extension. For reasons just like this. You know?
16 at bats. He went 4 for 16, 250, which, hey, Chris Davis, 247 average. That's what we want.
Yeah.
He scored 2 runs, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs. He struck out 8 times. That's a problem across the board, but
those 4 hits were 4 huge hits. Those 2 home runs were huge. 2 home runs, just the right points when we needed them.
I think this is something that I didn't get a chance to bring this up when we were talking about the potential free agents too. seeing what he has done, what he did in those last few weeks this season and postseason, as well as what Chad Pender did during the postseason, should make the organization feel confident of like them going forward, which makes like Jake Lamb was awesome those last couple of years, but I think you should feel confident in that, like, if something were to happen to Chapman again, or if we're able to bring back Marcus and something happens to him, Chad Pender's there, man. He's got your back.
Yeah.
So Katie, we're all just so happy that he had a pretty solid playoffs. Then
mine was Marcus, and I mean, we kind of talked about it earlier when we were talking about like, you know, looming free agent and stuff like that. He had an amazing postseason, and he's just kind of coming in his own as a postseason player. So like the potential for him to lead this team into a next round postseason in the coming years is just like, there's so much. He was 8 for 15, batted .538. 538 people. That is not, that was not a typo from Julio in our show notes. That is what he hit. 4 runs, 1 home run, 2 RBIs, 3 walks. Was very patient this series. I mean, he had the 1 error. Tough break. But I mean, Mark Hanna said it best. He's a great player. He's our captain, and he's a great friend. Like, it's just all the things you want to hear about that guy, you know? It's so good pick by me.
Absolutely.
Good pick by both of us. Good pick by both of us.
Yeah. And yeah, way to go. We did it. Hell, I have high five, man.
Yeah.
So the season's over. But
our last segment, the most fun segment for this one, though.
We have a couple of, so if you're still going to watch the playoffs, I think you should have some inclination of like knowledge of like what you should be looking out for. So there's a couple things we're going to talk about. One is, hey, are there any A's we should be watching that have potential of winning a World Series? Think about last year with our dude, Sean Doolittle, one of our favorite pitchers of this last decade, getting a ring with the Washington Nationals.
One of those hats in the background on the wall is signed by him.
Hey, there you go. Who could be this year's Sean Doolittle? So here's a couple options for you guys. Joey Wendell, or team by team. We're starting off the Tampa Bay Rays. Joey Wendell, you may remember him. He was our on and off second baseman.
He was the return for the Brandon Moss trade.
That's right. He was on and off second baseman in the 2016-2017 season, and we shipped him out for Jonah Heim, our current catcher, or one of our backup catchers. And he's actually turned into a pretty solid big leaguer. He had a pretty decent year last year. He only played 75 games with injury, but he's on the Rays roster. That's somebody to look out for.
And with Tampa Bay, before you move on to the next team, honorable mention, though, never played for the actual Oakland A's, but he was a product of our system. Daniel Robertson, he's a role player shortstop for them. Also look out for that.
So if you were, what kind of person would you be if you were to be rooting for the Rays? So I would think it's like, hey, you would root for the A's or the Rays if you're an A's fan, if your team had like an extra $10 million in a budget and could pay Charlie Morton.
That's a pretty good one. I don't really have a better one. I have like a good like normal person analogy if you're willing to hear that.
All right, go for it.
He's the stoner in your frat that for some reason always gets a 4.0 and he brings all your guys' the entire frat's GPA up. And you're just like, how the fuck does he do that? Like, this guy does nothing but smoke weed at all of our parties all day long, but he just finds a way to study in between.
I like that. That's actually a pretty decent analogy for the Rays. It's like, how do they keep doing this shit? I'm like, they just know their stuff, man.
Yeah.
So behind the scenes. Houston Astros. You're not going to root for them, but if you want some Ace storyline, Dustin Garneau had a couple cups of coffee with the team back in, I believe, 2016 as well as last year or 2017.
At least he didn't cheat as the other guy did.
Josh Reddick, who which hurts a lot, man, because that was another fan favorite.
Loved him.
But there's a lot of love lost with them. So, Chris, what kind of person would you be to root for the Astros for the rest of the postseason?
You would be the douchebag at the bar who's constantly trying to fight everybody. And you're just like, what the fuck is this guy's deal? And you're just like, and he just like, dude, this guy, he fucking said that I have like small fingers. So I try to fight this guy, and he's just constantly a mess. He's your friend who, no matter what you do, no matter when you go out, he's constantly just causing a wreck or just causing a mess. And you wonder all the time, why the fuck am I hanging out with this guy? But for some reason, he's one of your best friends, and you can just never get rid of him.
I would not consider the Astros a best friend.
Well, I mean, in theory, no one likes the guy who's a dick all the time, but like at the end of the day, really, he has friends, so someone's friends with him, and unfortunately, you're that guy. You're that guy who's friends with him.
I get it. I get it. For me, if you're rooting for the Astros, you think 2020 has actually been a good year. You're like, this has actually been a great year for me. I'm going to root for the Astros.
Yeah, you probably. Never mind. I'm not going to say it. We might have some conservative listeners.
Yeah. Next up, we have the boys that are just around the corner from me with the Los Angeles Dodgers, which I don't know if you saw. They're doing a drive-in viewing for the game
sick.
At Dodger Stadium. You can watch from the parking lot. I think it's like $75, and you can't have alcohol, but you can't tell a Dodger fan not to do that. Yeah. Anyways, guys you should be looking out for former Oakland Gates. Of course, Blake Trinan, our former all-star closer. He's over there in the bullpen. He's had a pretty decent year for them. The one that got away, Max Muncy, he's been hitting bombs for the Dodgers the last 2-3 years, and we've been dreading over it. He's had a kind of an off year this year, but the power's still there. And of course, our former skipper from the dark years of 2000.
He was a
7, 8, 9. Bob Guerin, you may remember him, who we had a fantastic rotation back then with Gio Gonzalez and who else is that? Andrew Bailey was a closer. Who else is the rotation?
That was Brett Anderson, Trevor Cahill, Dallas Braden.
Yep.
And I forgot who the last one was. I forgot who the fifth guy. A lot of young talent, and he just couldn't figure it out.
If you remember right, for those listening, the A's rotation was like top 5 in the AL. They were awesome, but their bullpen or their offense was like bottom 5.
Terrible. Like, and I think that was probably part of the Derek Barton era. Well,
you also had one of my favorite names to hear from Dick Callahan, which is Kevin Kuzmanov.
Yeah, he was all right.
He wasn't that great offensively. But anyways, Bob Guerin's the bench coach. So, Chris, if you're rooting for the Dodgers this postseason, what kind of person would you be?
That's your friend who, no matter what relationship she's in, just her boyfriends always cheat on her, and you feel so bad. And you're just like, I just need her to find like the right one. Like, just like, so you try and set her up with all your friends that you can. And, you know, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, but eventually she marries the right man, and it's the perfect man, and everybody likes him. So hopefully this year the Dodgers find the right boyfriend and it turns out into a long lasting marriage.
The Dodgers, if you're rooting for the Dodgers, you're doing it out of spite of the Giants.
That's a good one.
For me, I'm rooting. If I had to pick a team that I'm rooting for, it's the Dodgers. A lot of my close friends are Dodger fans, and we have a lot of love between each other's teams because we kind of get it. But yeah, if you just really hate the Giants, you're rooting for the Dodgers because of the spite out of it.
I regularly root for the Dodgers when the A's are out, which is every single postseason. Because living down here, you just kind of grow a special like just bond. I don't know. I just really I don't have. There's no real rivalry or hate, at least with my generation of A's fans, because I wasn't alive during '88, so I don't have. There's no love lost there. And then again, they won in '89, so it's like, all right, whatever. Like, we got ours. It's not like the Red Sox, who just like years after years. Anyway, yeah. So I'll be watching them for sure. I don't know if I'll have the stomach to watch the ALCS just because of the everything, but I'll definitely be watching the NLCS.
Yeah. Well, now that one of our favorite shows of all time is coming back on Tuesday, The Bachelorette. What to
That's
do?
right.
We're gonna be watching a lot of Bachelor
So
on Tuesday
excited for
night.
that.
So we'll
Oh
see.
my God, I am so excited for that.
Okay, that's gonna be a slideshow. We might do a slideshow Bachelorette talk. But besides
Yeah.
the point, the last team, last but not last but not
Can we maybe? No, yeah. Go ahead. Keep going.
the Hot Atlanta Braves, the
Hotlanta.
shutout machines. They're also home to one of our old coaches who taught players how to become a picking machine in Ron Washington. He's been the third base coach there for the last couple of years. So that's no players that are involved with the organization are there, but somebody who has a really close spot to all of our hearts because of all the awesome stuff he did for the organization over the last 20 years is there. So that's somebody to root for.
Turned Marcus Semien into one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball.
Yeah, 1000%. Marcus wouldn't be where he's at without Wash, because when he was this first year or two in Oakland as a shortstop, he wasn't great defensively. He really stepped it up. If you're rooting for the Atlanta Braves, what kind of player? Who would you be the kind of person? You're rooting for the Braves if you enjoy food from strip clubs.
Please explain.
Really. Well, no, because like the NBA playoffs and the whole bubble thing, Lou Williams went home and it was in Atlanta, and you got chicken wings from this place called Magic City, which also
That's known to have really good wings, though.
Exactly. So, and it's in Atlanta, and people are like, oh, giving him shit. They're like, oh, you just wanted to go to a strip club. But then a lot of people who are from Atlanta or people who've worked in the media and have been to the city, and they're like, no, he's right. It's actually really good chicken wings. But also, if you're an actual Atlanta fan and the Falcons are just really driving you insane, you're going even harder for the Braves.
It's a good one. So I would say mine is again, I'm doing a lot of these. I'm just like comparing them as like real life people, that things that you would know.
I like it. No, it's good. It's a good balance.
So mine is, it's the girl that all your friends think is like a dime, but you just don't get it. Like you just don't see it. Like you're like, she's pretty hot, but like, I don't know, maybe a 7 or 8. And all your friends, every single one of them was like, what are you talking about? She's a 10. She's a hard 10. And you just don't understand it. That's the Braves to me, because the Braves are always like really shiny and flashy. Like, oh my God, they're such a good baseball team. And they're always good. They're always good. But they've never really won anything. Like 94, that's it. But other than that, they've never really won anything. And they've always had like these unstoppable like forces that like people would say are just like the greatest teams of all time. But they only won one World Series. And like, so like, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
We're going to have a stat correction. It was actually 1995 when the Atlanta Braves won the World Series, because it was a strike shortened season in 1994.
Okay. All right. You don't have to go that deep into the stat correction. But yeah, that's right. 95.
Yeah.
Whatever. Exactly. You can't even remember when they won. You can't even remember the year.
I can tell you
how ridiculous it is.
My fun fact icebreaker thing that I do whenever I have to do those, because they're so much fun, is I can tell you every World Series matchup since '88.
Let's do that, because we are an hour long. We have more time to fill. Just kidding. All right. Thank you for joining us this week on the Town Tailgate podcast. Julio, do you have any last things you want to bring up?
One, throw a random year at me. Test me.
Throw a random. Okay. 91.
91. That was the Minnesota Twins beat the Braves.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So that's our show. The thing is going to be a little bit different. We're going to the off-season mode. We're not going to have as much content A's-wise to talk about on the show, so we're going to be moving to bi-weekly, but that doesn't mean you still shouldn't be paying attention to what we're doing and what the organization's going to be doing. We've already talked about we're going to be being a little more present on social media with Instagram. Of course, follow us on Twitter if you're not. But also, if you want to hear some more of just sports talk, Chris has a fantastic podcast to check out, the Magic Hour podcast, where what was the last episode you did? Do you have anything coming up soon too?
Yeah, so every week, me and a couple friends, Brad Field and Jay Mansker, we do on Thursday nights. We do $5 picks. So we pick 2 college games and we pick 3 NFL games. We bet $5 each week, and we just make picks, just straight up. So I picked the 5 best games I could find between college and NFL, and then we just pick them and we give them analysis on it. So that's going to be coming hopefully every week. We record those on Thursdays. They usually come up on Fridays. The last episode that we did $5 picks did not go up because it was just a shit show of technical wise, because these guys are just some old army guys that know nothing about tech. So I have to walk them through the entire thing all the time, but we got it down to a science now. So that'll be coming out every week. And then this week I'll be talking with Xavier Gomez, just recapping the NBA finals. So if you like an NBA, I don't talk baseball on there because I leave the baseball talk for the baseball podcast. But if you like football, basketball, and golf, then and UFC, you should tune into that podcast. But yeah, I think we're gonna try to do bi-weekly, and we're gonna become a general baseball podcast for the off season, and we're gonna try to work on getting some cool guests. And we've already started working on that. Julio has been talking to some people. I've been talking to some people. So look out for that too.
I'd also imagine we're probably going to be a little more loose with the content. So if you enjoyed us randomly talking about, hey, what are you watching? Or hey, what are you playing? No, that's the time, because I watched Midsommar last night and I did not have a good time.
I've heard things about that movie. Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. It's just disturbing, I hear.
I'm not going to watch it again.
Yeah, and also our favorite show's coming back, so we might talk some Bachelor too.
Now, but yeah, 1,000%. Now, before we officially sign off, I think we didn't really get a chance to talk about this. This season, well, yes, the ending was disappointing, but I think we're in the same boat, is that we're just grateful that we had baseball in the first place, that we had so much joy that Oakland A's baseball had brought not just us, but people across the world or country in the world. We had somebody who posted our show on the Oakland A's subreddit, where somebody's like from England. And I wish I screenshotted their comment before it was gone, but they had said, like, I love listening to your guys' stuff because I just like hearing these kind of conversations where they're a lot more casual. It's just kind of more banter between friends than it is this season. So don't be sad that the ride is over. Be glad that we've been a part of it, And also shout out just the A's organization as a whole, and how we had the COVID hiccup earlier in the season or at the beginning of September. But the fact that for outside of that, they had a really successful time of running this. So like, despite COVID, despite the whole Bay Area burning down and having to play so many days in a row, like, freaking kudos to the whole organization for pulling this off.
And we will still be tailgating no matter what, because that's what we do in the town. Also, rest in peace to Bob Gibson, one of the greatest pitchers of all time. He recently passed away. World Series with the Cardinals, played on all those championship teams in the 60s. So that was a huge loss to the baseball community. So that sucks. But yeah, rest in peace.
And also rest in peace to Whitey Ford.
Because
one of the Yankee great pitchers. And
2020 sucks.
And also rest in peace, man, Eddie Van Halen. The greatest guitarist ever.
Whoa. I mean, let's not get it carried away, but he was good.
All right.
Jump, baby.
I'm going to be starting, I guess, a spin-off music podcast. But hey, folks, we're going to be here. We'll be shooting the shit. We'll be on Twitter. We're going to be launching Instagram soon. So if
you have questions for us, just tweet at us.
Yeah, exactly. Let's end it on a good note, because I feel like that was kind of a bummer stuff. What's something good that you're looking forward to, or that's happened to you?
I'm looking forward to college basketball. It looks like it's coming back, so I'm pretty happy about that. I was worried it wasn't going to. I'm not looking forward to the dead sports zone, because we had such a huge like banging sports a couple months, and now it's going to slow down, which kind of blows. But I'm looking forward to college basketball. I'm looking forward to see Tenet. I haven't seen it yet, so I really want to see that movie. It looks
playing at the drive-in.
Ooh, I didn't know it was playing at the drive-in.
Yeah, there's a few drive-ins. Yeah, at least in LA, they're playing in drive-in. So I've been meaning to do it. So nice. It's a bit of a drive.
And I'm looking forward to living in my new place and living in El Segundo, because I did not lose my wallet in El Segundo, but I live here now. What about you, Julio?
I bought a PS5.
What? Nice.
Yeah, that's coming in a few weeks. So
what's the first game you're gonna get?
Already. Well, here's the thing. When they announced it, I was like, all right, I'm not gonna buy it until, because like one of my favorite PS4 games was the Spider-Man game. If you haven't played it, it's pretty excellent. I was like, I'm not gonna get it until a Spider-Man sequel comes out. And what was one of the launch titles? Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Nice. Hell yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I was planning on doing some traveling this year and all this stuff, Mike.
But no, I'm gonna buy a PS5.
Yeah, I was like, treat
how does
yourself.
Ann Whitney feel about that?
Oh, that's just more Sims and
that's right.
Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, I've heard. Oh no, we're both pretty big of gamers being here in quarantine between like Animal Crossing and Mario Kart and stuff. But that's one of the big things looking forward to. And honestly, just football. Hopefully this season doesn't get canceled, man.
Oh my God. I just hope the Raiders can keep it going. All right. So that's going to do it, folks. Thank you for listening. The tailgate for the season is closed, but we're going to take it down the street to the park, and we'll keep the tailgate going all off season. And last but not least, Julio.
One last time for the season. Let's go, Oakland.
Peace. The Town Tailgate is an independently produced podcast. It is written and executive produced by this guy, Chris Madrigal, and my partner in crime, Julio Reynoso. It is sound mixed and edited by yours truly. Social media management and marketing is run by, once again, my partner, Julio Reynoso. And a special thanks and shout out to my brother, Larry Madrigal, for composing and producing our theme song, as well as graphic designing our album cover and artwork. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Please tune in next week. Please subscribe. And last but not least, as we always say, let's go, Oakland.